Those Who Trespass Against Us by Julie Bull. My dad is always on at me to murder him when the time comes, though he is a bit vague about when this time will be. Once I don't know where I am, then I'm counting on you to put me out of my misery, Lucy. I'm not to be left in agony like some animal. I could tell him not to be silly, or to say that he's in fine fettle, but it would be a lie, so I don't bother. It's been 3 years since the diagnosis. The last round of chemo has failed to halt the progress of his cancer, and he is getting weaker. No further treatment is on offer, so we are somewhere near the end, and there is no one to care for him, only me. I've had to put up with his carry-on all morning to get him ready for church. First, he downright refused to get out of his bed, and since then he's been shouting and flailing and calling me all the names under the sun. Now, finally, he's straightened out and ready, wearing his check brown suit and burgundy silk tie, the same one he wore to my wedding all those years ago. Almost human he looks. "Have we time for a whiskey, Lucy?" He looks at me with these cloudy, pleading eyes, and I want to say to him that I remember everything. Instead, I tell him we'll have whiskey back at the house soon enough. I part the curtains, and it's a relief to see the taxi still waiting in the drizzle. My daughter's first Holy Communion is a big deal. It's all about our standing, both in the community and the eyes of the church. I know I have to care about this despite being lapsed. It means a lot to everyone, to our Anna in particular. So I do care. I won't let her down. Months ago, Paul put the laptop screen in front of my face to show me a YouTube clip of some American family who'd recorded every moment of their daughter making her first Holy Communion. "You want to go for something like this?" Those were his instructions. This video shows Mom, who has set out an all-white buffet in the massive kitchen in one of those houses that all American families live in, if you believe the televersion of America. On the large table, about 50 helium balloons are hovering over crucifix shortbreads, marshmallow biscuits, and a tall, sparkly cake. The family, there are loads of them and they're all smiling, come into the kitchen one by one, and the mother stands by as though it has been no effort at all to have created this spread. Her hair is bouffant, and her smile as white as the buffet. The family bob around each other like a big happy gang. White is fitting, Paul says, because it is the colour of purity. We went for a lace dress in the end, a flower garland and a silk drawstring bag, silk ballet pumps and plain white tights. I don't approve of tiaras and makeup, though both are getting to be a bit of a trend. There's families round our way without a brass penny that will bankrupt themselves to splash out on communion dresses and all of the razzmatazz that goes with it, even though our church has openly said it's not really what it's supposed to be about. So I know Father Michael doesn't agree with tiaras and frills, and certainly not covering kiddies' faces in makeup. I like Father Michael. He always looks at me like I matter when I go up to refuse the sacrament at weddings and christenings, folding my arms over my chest to signal that I want to take a blessing only. Maybe he's disappointed, but he wants me to know that the Lord loves me anyway, which is a nice idea, even if I don't believe a word of it. I often wonder what Paul tells Father in the confession box, whether the sins he commits are mortal or venial. I know that at each confession the slate is wiped clean, which is dead handy. For the last 7 days I've pushed a rolling pin across biscuit dough and pulled white icing into the shape it needs to be to cover my crap baking. I've sifted flour and pounded and rolled dough and paste. Now I've even managed to get the old sod to the church in one piece, and for all that I think I deserve a bloody medal. Not that I'll get a word of thanks from my other half. We pull up to St. Mary of Magdalene, and Paul's face looms down through the car window, pointing at his watch to tell us we are late. His face is round and red, his chin nicked from shaving. You can see the anger seething beneath his skin. "You're the last to arrive, for fuck's sake. I thought you weren't coming." "We're here now," I announced the obvious, anything to calm him down. By some miracle, the sun has come out and is shining through the horse chestnut trees outside St. Mary's. I watch Anna flitting among her friends. They're sort of skittering and twirling about, and they all look like tiny brides, which gives me the heebie-jeebies. Eventually, she rejoins us for a photo. Her granddad places his big bony hand around her waist and manages a smile through the dentures that he's never got used to. It is time to go in and receive the Eucharist. This is the church where Paul and I were married 13 years ago. As we take our place in the pew, I remember that day. It was a long walk down the aisle, every step such an effort to take, like I was wading through oil to get to him. Paul left it very late to turn round and face me, and when he did, I just thought, who is this guy? It sounds weird, I know, but it was as if he was a total stranger. But I was going to marry him anyway. I was happy to be given away if it meant I could get away from my dad and be part of something else. Today, Father Michael raises his arms in welcome. Father, we thank you for these children. Children, God called you by your name at your baptism, and now the way to the full communion lies before you. Set your feet firmly onto that path and learn to trust Jesus always. The congregation begins the call and response. Then it's the Lord's Prayer, and I join in because I can remember all the words from school. Give us this day our daily bread. Deliver us from evil. Forgive those who trespass against us. I was 9 years old when my mum had 2 strokes in the space of a few months and then died. It breaks my heart when I think of it, because I feel so sorry for the little girl I was then. I don't honestly know if I miss her, but I wish she'd stayed around. After that, my dad brought me up, did the best he could, putting aside his own grief to do it. Well, that's one version of the story anyway. A man has needs, was what my grandmother would say in a voice hinting at things I couldn't be expected to understand. The fact that my poor father's needs remained unmet was offered by way of explanation for his foul temper. His moods got darker as each of my birthdays passed. By the time I was 14, he had a certain look in his eye that followed me across the room and made me put the chair against my bedroom door every night, as if that could stop him. I left home when I was 17, ran away to Manchester where I got a job in a hotel and rented a room in a house down by the canal, not realising that I was moving into the area where all the gays lived. It didn't bother me. I actually loved the fact that no men ever looked at me there. Out of some sense of duty, I still visited my dad most Sundays. I would fetch him a bit of shopping and make a hot meal, do a bit of cleaning, and always, as I gathered my things to leave, he would kick off, telling me I'd been sleeping with all kinds of men and calling me a bitch to leave him, and then the shouting would turn to tears and pleading for me to come home. I need you, Lucy. I can't be living here alone, an old man. Just before my 24th birthday, I bought a part share in a flat in the centre of Manchester on a special scheme for first-time buyers. It had a balcony large enough for me to set out a small table and chairs, hang some outdoor lights. It looked like something from a magazine. Every evening when I caught a glimpse of those chairs on the balcony, I was absolutely made up. I had this sense that I had made something good out of nothing much. By the time I met Paul, I'd got myself a qualification in hospitality management and was a team leader in the hotel chain that first employed me. My sights were set higher, and I even started to think about a degree. Paul was a regular at the Millennium Inn, so we often exchanged small talk, and he began to invent all sorts of excuses to talk to me, slowly getting more jokey and flirty. He made a lot of the fact that we were both from Liverpool and shared the same Scouse sense of humour. He wore sharp suits and well-pressed shirts in colours that brought out the ice blue of his eyes. I liked how clean and smart he looked, and I laughed at his jokes, though they weren't that funny. He took me out to dinner on one of my rare evenings off. It was early May and the weather was glorious. Blossom all over the trees outside the town hall in Albert Square. We ate at one of the smart new restaurants that were beginning to open all over town. We drank cocktails with salt round the rim of the glass. My head was swimming by the time I invited him back to sit on my balcony. We drank wine looking out over the chimneys and cranes beyond. "You're just what I've been looking for," he said, like I was the perfect outfit, or something on a menu. Then he unwrapped me from my clothing and had sex with me like I wasn't really there. After that, it was as though I'd signed on some invisible dotted line, like he owned me. He stayed at my flat whenever he was in town. He left shoes in my narrow hallway and shaving gear in my tiny bathroom. He took charge of things for me, fixing broken taps and getting quotes for insurance. It was a relief after so long on my own. I turned the feeling of being looked after at last into a love story. Paul worked in IT and was dead ambitious just like me. He said we made a great team. He also said he admired my independence, which is strange because what he did was set about destroying it. Over the next 2 years, the value of my flat went up a lot, and he persuaded me that selling it to put a deposit down on our new build back in Liverpool would be the making of us. I would be back at home with family to help us, with the kids we hadn't had yet. Back where I belonged. Back to square one, more like. I fought for my freedom only to give it up for a starter home in a cul-de-sac. To this day, I don't really know why. I think I believed it might be my only shot at a proper family. Anna is now in a long line of girls and boys who are approaching the altar to take communion. I watch her as she makes her way towards the front. She's luminous, her grey-blue eyes shining, her hands held in prayer position and her expression as pious as can be. As she nears the front of the line, she cups her hands to receive the communion wafer and put it to her mouth. It is in her now, the body of Christ. I know that I've been a disappointment as a wife, and not only because I've turned my back on the church, though Paul puts all our misfortunes down to this one fact. If I'd truly given myself to the Holy Mother Church, I would not have lost 2 babies before they were even born, and he would not hate me for it. His mother doesn't hold back. She thinks I'm a jinx on her precious son. You'll have no luck, she told me after Anna's baptism when I wouldn't take communion. There have been times when I've thought the old cow is right, but then again, we have been given the gift of this one child. My girl, my Anna. I love the bones of her, and I know that she'll forgive me for what I have to do. Until recently, I'd still hoped there was a chance of a brother or sister for her, which made it easier to bear when he climbed on top of me, grunting his way to climax and sometimes calling me a whore. Just dirty talk, he says, no harm in it. I used to lie still afterwards, very still, wanting his sperm to settle inside me and give me one more chance. Now I want nothing of the sort. My future will be hard enough without another kid in tow. There's a party back at ours. Anna runs between friends and relatives, collecting her cards and presents. The biscuits I've slaved over are only crumbs now. I need to get Dad home and put him to bed. Paul is bladdered and I still don't have my licence, so it's another taxi and then the walk back for me. I don't mind because it's more time to think, more time away from Paul. You'll give your granddad a special hug, so you will. He lurches towards her, folding her into him, and I see her curl her nose up. Goodbye, goodbye all. He waves his arms at no one, and I see Paul watching from the window. He's obviously got a cob on. God knows why this time. I roll down the car window and feel the damp brush in. I'm not afraid of them anymore. Not Paul, not Dad either. I don't know when it happened, but I feel brave. I feel like they owe me, the pair of them, and I reckon when the old fella is gone, the money from that house can get me out of here. I think of it all the time. I'll rent a place, somewhere further south. Get a job, get a divorce, get a life. It's getting closer every day, the time when this will happen. Back at Dad's, I turn up the thermostat and hear the boiler fire up. It's like winter has come on all of a sudden. I put the kettle on to boil for his tea, and then I help him up the stairs and into his pyjamas. I should wash him with a flannel like I usually do, but it's late and I'm tired and I don't much care whether he's clean. It was a grand day, Lucy. It was, I say, plopping his dentures into a glass, lifting his legs up onto the bed and pulling the duvet up to his chin. I pick up one of the pillows next to his head. I close my eyes and feel the weight of it in both of my hands. I imagine him looking up, his eyes full of fear. I'm not even ashamed to say that this thought pleases me. But he's already drifting off to sleep, and his eyes stay closed. I wonder if I'm strong enough to hold the pillow over his face if he puts up a fight. He's always been stronger than he looks. Eventually, he will give in. In a single moment, he will let go. Let me go. I button up my trench coat and take my scarf from the peg in the hallway. As I open the door to leave, I hear him call, a cry which turns into a wail, intended to get me running back upstairs. I close the door behind me and walk out into the dark, knowing that the time has very nearly come.